Hello, Crystal Palace. Welcome to the Upper Norwood Library Hub's Library Lunch. This is a place to share positive and useful local information, find out about our community in a bit more depth, and just keep us all connected and entertained during this time. So I'm delighted to welcome my guest today, who is Mark Petty, a lyricist and producer. Mark, thank you so much for joining us. It's lovely to
Oh,
have
it's
you.
my absolute pleasure. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good, doing well, thank you. It was a rainy day this morning. I was taking my dogs out about 7 a.m. and it was absolutely bucketing down, but the
Oh,
weather turned a bit nicer now.
there seems to be some sun now, which is definitely an improvement.
It was a good thing.
Let's hope it holds. Tell us a bit about you and your background.
So my name is Mark Robert Petty. I always was very interested in music. I used to write poetry as a kid. I used to dance in front of the TV to Top of the Pops when I was a little kid. Just always wanted to be a pop star. Moved down to London when I was 18. Worked in a hotel for a couple of years, but was in a go-go dancing competition at a gay nightclub. I came third, and when I came off the stage, I was approached by a guy who was forming a boy band. So for
Wow.
about 2 years, I was in a boy band that never got anywhere, and it was a quite odd time in my life. It wasn't very enjoyable at all. And it's weird that I'm a writer now, because at the time I wasn't allowed to be part of the writing process at all. And after a couple of years, that kind of fell apart, and we never had any singles or anything. We just did a bit of touring. But that kind of gave me the bug. And I came out of it for a number of years and didn't really know anybody in the industry, still kind of kept writing. And I met my husband in 2004, and he found all this stuff that I'd done and said, why aren't you doing this with your life? So put an advert in the Stage, had a guy that I worked with over here in the UK for about 3 years. So I've got a body of work from that, but nothing ever really came of it. He ended up being a concert promoter. It was what he really wanted to do. And I ended up having a lot of friends in the US. We used to go to New York a lot of friends working on Broadway. And I spoke to a friend of mine called Lucia Spina, who's a Broadway actress, who was in the musical Legally Blonde at the time. And I just said to her, I said, look, I'm really frustrated. I really wish I could find somebody that really wants to do this as much as I do. And she had a friend called Barry, who was also in Legally Blonde, who had said the same thing to her a few weeks
Oh,
previously. So she put us together, and
amazing.
we emailed stuff that we'd done, got on really well, and decided to start writing together. I flew to New York for about 3 weeks. This would have been in 2011, beginning of 2011. And we spent 3 weeks writing together, wrote about 15 songs. And then in the May, we put on our first concert, which was at the Duplex in Greenwich Village. And it went really well. I then came back to London, and nobody knew anything about us, and started going around lots of like cabaret venues in town saying, hello, I'm a songwriter. We've written some songs. Would you be interested in singing them? And it just started kind of working its way up through there, getting to know more and more West End people. About a year later, we did our first album, which is the background you can see here, which is called You Are Home. And it obviously has Big Ben and the Statue of Liberty to reflect that Barry and I are US and UK.
Nice.
And it was great because we had half the album was West End performers and half the album was Broadway performers. It features such people as Francis Raffel, Gina Beck, Kieran Brown, Cynthia Erivo, who is now a mega star. Oscar nominations this year, which is absolutely wonderful. And it just kind of carried on from there. I'm going to change my background now because I've got all of these in order so I can show you our next album here. So we worked with a charity called the Make a Difference Trust. And they do lots of things throughout the year: West End Eurovision, West End Bears, and West End Christmas. And every year, Barry and I would write them a brand new Christmas song specifically for their show. So after about 7 years, we had 8 or 9 songs. And we thought, well, why don't we release a Christmas album? So we released a Christmas CD a couple of years ago, which again had West End and Broadway performers on it. Liz Calloway, Natasha Barnes, a great guy called Drew Seeley. People may not recognize his voice, but he's done a lot of kind of Disney TV movies, like Another Cinderella Story. He was the mixed vocals with Zac Efron in the High School Musical movies. Oh, he actually wrote Get Your Head in the Game. So yeah,
Brilliant.
that's kind of how I met Barry. I'm trying to remember if that was even the original question now.
I think it became the question along the way. how do you manage your writing with you being so far apart?
Do you know what?
How do you make it
In
work?
10 years, I've probably seen Barry about 6 or 7 times. The wonders of technology, we do everything on Skype, which is really like being in the same room. I'm sat chatting to him as I'm chatting to you now. I'm writing stuff down. He's sat there with his keyboard playing away. A lot of times, especially with Barry, because I collaborate with other people as well, but mainly with Barry, we sit and we talk about a story and we kind of create it ourselves, working on lyrical ideas until we have that, and then we develop the music until we're ready with what it's going to be. Some people, they just do the music and I do the lyrics. Sometimes they'll have the music first. Sometimes I'll send the lyrics to them. It's that kind of chicken and egg thing. Yeah. It's never the same.
And that's half the fun, isn't it, though?
It is, yeah. And weirdly, I write differently with other people, which I also like. It's almost like you have a formula of what works with that person, but with another person, they have different ideas and it develops into something else. So I like to feel that it helps me become a better writer.
Yeah. Well, variety is always good, isn't it? It sort of pushes you in different directions, I guess. So you guys were all set up for lockdown then? It was just business as usual.
Well, look, that's the weird thing. Lockdown happened, and my creative juices seemed to just disappear. I spent the first 6 weeks baking. I think most people did. Yeah. I put on nearly a stone in weight because of all the baking.
Also fairly normal, I think.
Yeah, and just watching Disney Plus, really. Yeah. And then we kind of got into late May, July, and I thought, okay, I need to start getting out more. Lots of walking the dogs, taking them on, a bit more exercise. And then started getting in contact with people again and said, look, let's see what we can do. Let's get creative. Let's get the juices flowing. So we just started working on some more projects. We've got another couple of Christmas songs that we're developing, which obviously we'll be releasing November, December time. The one thing that we did in September, we had about 3 years ago, we had a couple of projects that we were asked to be part of. So we wrote songs for them, but nothing actually came of them. And we thought, you know what, we've never released these songs. So we had a song called I Do, which is here, and you can see the Eiffel Tower. It was a project about something called objectum sexuality, which I'd never heard of. And it's about people who fall in love with inanimate objects. And the character that we chose was called Erica Eiffel, changed her name clearly, who legally married the Eiffel Tower.
Wow.
So we wrote this song, which was called I Do, which was sung by a lady called Jen Burley-Bentz, who was in Mamma Mia on Broadway. Middle of September, we released Dream World, which was kind of a TV jingle. We had a couple of friends of ours who had launching like a new tea company, and they were doing a podcast for it as well. So we created a song called Dream World, which they both sang. And then at the end of September, we released our song called He Never Lost the Fight, which again, it was a play which came out about 3 or 4 years ago, a one-man play about a guy called Jack Johnson, who was the first African-American heavyweight champion of the world almost 100 years ago. And it was his story. And it was just so nice to be able to get these songs and say, this is what we did. Here are the studio versions. Have a listen. Let us know what you think. So again, it's a way of just, getting some more product out there and saying, we're still here. We're still doing things. Yeah.
Amazing. It sounds, you said that the start of lockdown sounded like it was sort of a bit slow. Maybe a rest was a good thing. But it sounds like you've been really busy, actually.
Interestingly, yeah. You kind of find ways to fill your day, and days seem to be flying by. I'm getting up a lot earlier in the mornings now. We've got 2 dogs. One a Cavapouchon called Pippin, who is 4, and we had a Westie, our lovely girl called Charlie, who we lost last year, unfortunately. But we felt that Pippin needed to have a companion. So in December, we got a miniature golden doodle who's called Hubble. And they're actually both brothers. They both have the same miniature poodle dad. But I remember the breeder saying to me, yeah, he'll be about the same size as Pippin. And Pippin's about this big. Hubble is about this big. He's clearly got more of the golden retriever in him, but he's lovely. So, and he wakes up at about 6:30 in the morning.
Right.
And he's really nice. He'll sit by the bed, but by about 5 to 7, if we haven't roused, he'll start barking. So we now kind of get up about 6:45, and by 7 o'clock, I'm usually in Beckenham Place Park having a lovely walk with them, which is, you know, half an hour to an hour. So it's good, and it gets me kind of pumped up, ready for the day. So thank you, Hubble. You've you know, allowed me to live more of the day now. Thank you.
Just a natural alarm clock, basically.
Yeah, they're amazing, amazing animals.
Yeah. Do you find that that does make a difference to your productivity, getting up earlier and just starting with a walk?
Yeah, he's changed my outlook on things. I'm normally really kind of lazy in the morning. And I'm the kind of person that will get up and don't talk to me till I've had my coffee, that kind of thing. But getting up and having those extra few hours, I find myself much more energized, much more capable in thinking about, you know, what can I do today? And it's really helped me to be creative. Yeah. So I think I should dedicate the next album to Hubble.
We'll look forward to that. You mentioned other collaborations. Do you want to tell us a bit about some of those?
Yes. So again, I like writing differently with other people. I've done a couple of things with Michael Patrick Walker, who wrote a musical called Altar Boys, which came out a couple of years ago. And I'm currently working on a brand new project, which I'm developing with the wonderful Dana Rowe, who wrote The Witches of Eastwick and The Fix. So that's a new project, which again has kind of slowed down a little bit because of everything that's happened, because it involved me going out to the States and doing like retreats and workshops and that kind of thing. So that's kind of there's a hold put on that, but it was so nice. It's so nice just to be able to work and develop things with other people, yet still have my bond with Barry and the work that I do with Barry. I mean, it's not. I think the first time I did it kind of felt like I was going off and having an affair, and like it felt really weird. But it's completely fine. Yeah, and Barry writes his own stuff as well. And as well, because he's a Broadway actor, he does shows, he does TV commercials, all that kind of stuff. But we know that the core of it is we get back to doing what we're doing, but it's okay to go off and do other things. I actually forgot to say that back in May, you can't quite see the top of that, we released a single called Get Brave with the wonderful Alexa Green, who you can see there, who was an Elphaba in Wicked, on the US tour of Wicked. She has the most amazing voice. We originally had her on our Christmas CD. And we had decided to write a song. Initially, it started about bullying or homophobia or anything that kind of makes people feel marginalized in some way. And especially when COVID hit, we ended up recording a video for it. And Barry had gone around New York with friends of his that he'd had, and he'd recorded people, hospital workers and people on the streets and all that kind of thing, which we interspersed with people in their living rooms, showing them being brave and what they were doing, how they were coping and stuff. And we just loved doing it. And it's different to what we normally, you know, we kind of do country or rock, pop, that kind of thing. And this was like a real pop, high energy pop anthem thing that you can kind of get up and dance to.
Cool.
So we loved doing that.
Awesome. You have another story about bullying, I think.
I do, yes. We've got a lovely little boy called Charlie Christensen, who I had the pleasure of meeting last year. Some of your listeners may have heard of Charlie. Back in the summer of last year, he was bullied quite badly at school for his love of musical theatre. And he would have singing lessons with a wonderful West End actress called Jacqueline Hughes, who was in Mary Poppins. And he came to her singing lesson that day and visibly upset. And she just put a tweet out saying, look, this has happened. You know, he's really upset. If any of my friends can please send him a little message or a little tweet, just showing him some support, it will make him feel a lot better. This went viral. I mean, almost every single West End show sent a video. Some of the Broadway shows did. A lot of movie actors did. The English actor Will Poulter, who was in the Maze Runner movies, he sent him a message. The young kid, Ian Armitage, who plays young Sheldon, he also sent him a message. I host and produce I'm going to put this up now. I host and produce a twice monthly concert series at Brasserie Adele in the West End called the Crazy Cox Presents. And we have different themes. I mean, it can be anything from musical theatre based. We did a Carpenter's Night, Stephen Sondheim, 80s party nights. It's different every single month. But I messaged Jacqueline and said, look, I'd really like to invite Charlie and his family along to one of these shows so he can have an evening around people that absolutely love musical theatre, just to make him feel better. They came along, I got him on stage, I talked about what had happened, got the audience behind him, and he was telling me how much he loved Stephen Sondheim. So in the September of last year, we were doing a Stephen Sondheim show. So I just invited him along and he sang Giants in the Sky from the Woods, which was lovely. And he's just such a special little kid, and he realizes now he's now an ambassador for an anti-bullying campaign for the Diana Award. And just to hear him stand up in front of all of these people and talk about his story and talk about not wanting another little boy to have to go through what he went to, it's so wonderful. We've actually got a YouTube series that comes out every week called Musical Chairs with Cheer Up Charlie, where Charlie sits and interviews celebrities. And he's doing really, really well. I mean, he's interviewed Matt Lucas, Townsend Outhwaite, Ben Stock, Hilary O'Neill, Ross King, the TV presenter. And I've seen him as the months go by, he just gets better and better and better at it. I mean, he's better at this than I am. But he's wonderful. And the campaign that started up was #CheerUpCharlie. So literally you type in #CheerUpCharlie or Charlie Christensen and it comes up with everything about him. And he's going to be, I think he's going to be a really big star. He's going to be a TV presenter or something like that. He's utterly charming and so committed to what he does. So from something that was really quite negative, something really, really positive has come from it, which I'm really, really happy with.
That's an incredible story, an amazing response. It's
yeah, he's just wonderful. Because I'm inspired by him.
Yeah. Oh, well, I hope you'll have to send him. You'll have to send him the video of this so he can hear you say that. If you haven't already told him.
I will.
Yeah. It strikes me actually something. Just talking about this and what you were saying about Barry and your work with Barry. It's all about community, isn't it? And that's something that as freelance musicians and artists we don't always get. And it strikes me as kind of an interesting point. And I wonder what effect the pandemic has had on you in terms of kind of life and work and community. And
it's funny, as I said, when it first happened, I kind of went into a shell and we kind of just, stayed in and baked and watched TV and kind of twiddled our thumbs. One thing that was interesting, we've obviously got a lot of friends around the world. We've got friends in America, friends in Europe, a lot of friends in Sweden. Especially with Zoom, I wish I'd bought shares in Zoom, I'll tell you that now. We started doing Zoom meetings, once a week, with 20, 30 people that we all knew. And we started doing it weekly, which would never have happened pre-COVID. We have like a weekly quiz that we do. And it's just really made us connect with people more than we ever did before. And that's one of the really wonderful things that's come from it. And with this sense of, like what you do, what you're doing right now about bringing, your local community together, I think it's a really wonderful thing. So thank you so much for doing that. But yes, it's, you take a step back and you really learn to appreciate all the things that you had taken for granted before then. So hopefully moving forward, when things start getting some semblance of normality again, I hope people don't forget that.
Yeah, absolutely agree. In terms of the arts in general, I mean, you seem to have had a fair bit to kind of keep you busy during lockdown and things, but you, as you said, artists all over the world. How has it been? It's a difficult time.
Yeah, I mean, like with Barry in New York, all the theatres closed down here. I mean, my husband's work was cancelled for the entire year. And it's just a kind of way of finding something to do to still enable you to be creative and feel that, you're doing something of worth. We actually reopened Crazy Cox last week. It's a completely different setup. It's socially distanced. We have half the audience, half the tables. We normally have about 5 performers per show. We now only have 2. We normally have a band. We now only have a pianist. But just to be back up on stage in front of an audience and to see how appreciative and thankful the audience were just to be there. even if it was only for just over an hour or so. It was really, really special. So baby steps, but just to be able to do something and be able to bring a community together again that absolutely love doing and seeing what it is that you do is really, really great.
Yeah, I think it's been really amazing to be able to carry on during lockdown, and Zoom has made so many things possible,
Really
and sort of live streaming and all these sorts of things. But yeah, similarly, I think the thing I've really missed has been the energy in the room and just being able to bounce off something rather than feeling like you're sending something into a void. So yeah, I did my first in-person choir session with a really small group a couple of weeks ago, and it just I was actually quite upset afterwards.
You feel it coming on, and you start getting this feeling up in here, and it's kind of a mixture of complete joy and literally wanted to start crying.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, as you said, baby steps, and it is amazing that we're able to start taking those steps again, and see where it leads.
I think people have forgotten, and I don't want to get political now, but since lockdown, people are reading books, they're watching TV, they're watching movies, all this thing, which then with the theatres not reopening and all this kind of stuff, it just taking all of that away. Everybody that's in lockdown, this is what they're turning to help them and help them get through this. So we need some way of being able to get the theatres open again, try and be creative, and just make everything work. Figure out what the new normal is going to be.
And just I think keep looking at what's local as well as what's the things we would maybe normally have gone to as well. Really seeing what's right there.
I mean, until I went to Crazy Cox last week, I hadn't been in the centre of London since the end of March. And I'd been shopping locally, and getting to know my neighbourhood again. I think Julie Atherton had said that in her interview earlier in the week about just getting to know your neighbourhood and talking to people, talking to your neighbours. It really does build up this sense of community, like people did a long time ago, and there's nothing wrong with that, and we should do that. I've lived in London for many years in many different places, and half the time I never knew who my neighbours were. And a sense of community is really, really important.
Yeah, absolutely. What would you say to people who I asked Julie this as well, so hopefully this is already in your mind since you watched it. What would you say to people who want to support the arts during this time and help it get back on its feet?
Do as much as you can. The arts bring people together. The arts bring joy to people. They bring community. They make people happy. Without the arts, the world would be a much sadder place, I think. So just support the arts.
Great, thank you. I've got one more question, which actually I haven't warned you about this one, so I'm sure you'll come up with something. I'm wondering if you if you might have any tips for people who are interested in writing songs, lyrics, or you obviously wrote poetry to start with as well. So people who want to write and just want to know how to take it a bit further forward. Do you have any tips?
The one thing you absolutely mustn't do is listen when people turn around to you and tell you not to do it. Especially when I was younger, and my dad is 100% behind me now, but I remember when I was a kid and I said, this is what I want to do with my life. They were like, no, it's not very secure. There's hardly any people that become successful. And what I will say is, if it is something that you feel strongly that you believe in and you want to do, and you feel it in here as well as in here, you absolutely must do it. What thing is, once you start doing something and you start getting some positive feedback and you realize that what you're doing has some worth, it really, really does spur you on. It's just about believing in yourself. Don't listen to, because the people that turn around to you and say those negative things, they're the people that are not doing what they want to be doing with their lives, and they just want to put you down. If you have a gift, use it. Absolutely use it. Awesome. Walt Disney always said, if you can dream it, you can do it. So there you go.
And look how far Walt Disney went.
Absolutely. Look how far Walt Disney went. See?
Amazing. Awesome. Thank you. That's great. We're getting towards the end of our time, actually.
Oh, that's
So
flown by. Thank you
I
so
know.
much.
It's been lovely to chat to you. Do you have anything else that you want to say before we wrap it up?
No, I hope everybody's well. Stay safe, stay well, and see you on the other side.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, really, really lovely to chat to you. Thank you
Lovely to
so
talk
much
to you
for
too.
joining
Thank you
us.
so much.
So, just before we finish, a couple of things to say. We're still looking for people to come join us in our All Alone Together project funded by the Arts Council. So this is a project to look at the effect of the pandemic on our local community, particularly artists, but we're looking for anybody from the local community, so the immediate boroughs around Crystal Palace. So it's quite a broad brief. There's a very short survey on our website to fill in, just 4 questions. And there's a box to tick if you're happy to be interviewed, in which case I will be in touch with you to arrange an interview. They're about an hour long, very much led by you. So we'll talk about what you're happy to talk about. We won't talk about what you're not happy to talk about. And these are being used in a couple of ways. Firstly, research by the Library Hub to see what gaps there are, maybe how we can tailor our services to really help as we move forward, find out what the new normal is. And then also the interviews edited sections are being used to create a podcast and an oral history of our community during this time. So this will be publicly available and you'll be able to hear members of our community in their own words, in their own voices, talking about their experiences. The more people who do it, the better, the more interesting it is. Everybody I've spoken to so far has been really, really different. There's been an amazing sense of gratitude and positivity running through it, despite challenges and really quite difficult stories sometimes. And it's been really wonderful to hear all of that. So you don't have to have a big dramatic story or anything major to say. It's just we're actually quite interested in the everyday details as well. So please do pop along to our website, fill in the survey, and I would love to interview you and have a chat about it if that's of interest. We're also always looking for people to come on this show. We've had an amazing West End week this week, really, and an artistic leaning. It's been fabulous. So anybody, again, from the local community or occasionally beyond as well, if you've got something to talk about, something to advertise, something you want to chat about, we'd love to hear from you. It makes our life much easier if we have people who actually want to come, who put themselves forward. So please do give us a shout at Galina.Rin at unlt.org. As always, we have loads and loads of stuff coming up. There's a children's musical theatre camp starting, or not camp rather, for the term starting next week. There's a few places left. Please do jump on that if you're interested, because there's not many places left. There's also a Halloween concert coming up, which is family orientated. It's lots of West End stars, again organised by Daniel Stockton. So I think Joan Upthine, who came and chatted to us earlier in the week, is involved, and she mentioned something about hopefully having a cat costume and performing one of her numbers on top of a table. So I would really tune in and find out if that happens. I'm certainly going to. We've got the huge live stream program going on. It's varied and ever increasing, ever changing. So please do. And there's a few in-person classes, very carefully done. So do have a look at what's going on at the hub, because it's varied and ever changing with the circumstances. So that's it from me for today. We'll be back on Monday. I think we might have another kind of West End orientated week next week, so the fun continues. And that's it from me. Mark, thank you so much. It's been really lovely to chat to you.
Oh, well, absolute pleasure.
Stay
Thank
safe,
you very much.
everybody.
Bye.
See you again. Take care, everybody.